Hello, I'm Freya Gosling, Programmes Coordinator for Engagement at Clore Leadership, and I work closely on our governance development work. I'm a white woman with blonde highlighted hair, glasses and a fringe, wearing a dark green jumper with a golden necklace, with a pale blue background showing a frame print and a large cheese plant behind me. Welcome also to Nikki Harris, who is providing BSL interpretation for this recording. I'll be taking you through the executive summary of our recently published report, Places at the Table, a review of disability and governance in the cultural sector. This report has been written by Tim Wheeler for Clore Leadership, supported by the work and principles of the Cultural Governance Alliance. Section 1, Introduction. The image shown in the slide is a group of people sat around a table, which was taken at the 2017 Unlimited International Selection Panel. Thank you to Joe Verrant from Unlimited for supplying the images in this presentation. In late 2021, Clore Leadership commissioned Tim Wheeler Arts to undertake research exploring the benefits and barriers to the involvement of deaf, disabled and neurodivergent people as board members within the arts and cultural sector. This research stems from conversations Clore Leadership have undertaken over recent years with several leading disabled stakeholders in the cultural sector, notably Andrew Miller, cultural consultant, broadcaster and disability champion, Sarah Pictor, coach, consultant and digital inclusion specialist, Michelle Taylor, Director for Change at Ramps on the Moon, and Joe Verrant, Senior Producer for Unlimited. It builds on the call to action delivered by Andrew in his address to the Governance Now conference in 2020 and republished here with kind permission. Clore Leadership continues to advocate for sector development, championing an industry-wide response to the challenges of board leadership and governance, and promoting opportunities for board development and the upskilling of disabled board members. This report aims to consult disabled people and non-disabled allies already on boards and those seeking first opportunities, but who may be daunted by the prospect. It seeks to answer the questions. What can we learn? What change is needed to improve as a sector? What are our priorities and our resource needs? What is required to create effective and sustainable support for disability and governance in the cultural sector? Who is the report for? Through commissioning this report, Clore Leadership aims to help the arts and cultural sector identify the issues, priorities, development and resource needed to help provide better support for disability and governance in cultural organisations. It may be helpful for arts development agencies, trusts and foundations when considering policy, programme development and funding criteria. Investment principle sector organisations seeking to support the sector-wide inclusive leadership and governance. Organisations and individuals in the cultural sector seeking to develop more inclusive practices relevant to their audiences, attendees, participants, staff and board members. And finally, disabled-led and inclusive arts organisations seeking to extend good practice into the wider cultural sector. Section 2, Executive Summary. And on this slide, there's another image showing 3 people discussing something earnestly with one participant smiling broadly. The research undertaken between October 2021 and February 2022 has given a clear insight into the benefits and barriers to the inclusion of deaf, disabled and neurodivergent people in governance within the UK arts and cultural sector. Feedback from 72 surveys and 24 interviews told us that the lack of resources, prejudice, legal complications, ableist systems and lack of confidence all stood in the way of effective inclusion of disabled people in government processes. Responses described a sector that responds inconsistently to the engagement of disabled people in decision-making processes. Whilst there are some strong examples of best practice, as highlighted through this report, all too often, disabled voices are excluded from board-level conversations. This indicates a need to address poor governance practice more generally. However, there is room for optimism with respondents strongly advocating for the many benefits of including those with disability around the board table, benefiting from those with lived experience who could usefully inform decision-making, shape organisational values, and improve connectivity with stakeholders in the wider community. A distillation of responses to the survey and interviews shows a range of benefits to including disabled people, both to organisations and individuals, some of which I will summarise now. Organisations can show their vision, mission, and values in action, make better decisions which impact at all levels, reflect the communities they serve, benefit from the skills, knowledge, and lived experience of disabled people, improve communication with stakeholders, staff, audiences, and participants, and increase income. Disabled people can become active decision makers and influencers, network intelligently with others who share an appetite for change, support their continuing professional development, future-proof inclusion by supporting the next generation of disabled creative leaders. Now thinking about some of the barriers. Deaf, disabled, and neurodivergent people are well practiced at identifying the barriers faced in everyday life. Physical, sensory, procedural, intellectual, and informational barriers result from deep-seated attitudes that disavow the disability experience. Attitudes really are everything, and attitudes can take decades to change. That change can be incremental or sudden. Witness the burgeoning of disability-related arts after London 2012 Olympics, or the instant inclusion of many more disabled people in online conversations as organisations pivoted to negotiate the pandemic. And it is in leadership and governance where attitudes need to shift most if we are to build on gains in creating a more equitable cultural society. There is an urgent need to acknowledge and dismantle the barriers and obstacles that hamper progress. Any roadmap that advocates for future action to address disability in governance will need to address the following significant barriers directly. The cost of providing access and inclusion, current charity law, which perpetuates paternalism, lack of specific resources, financial, educational, training and development, ableist systems and structures which benefit non-disabled people, disableist stigma and misperceptions attached to impairment, lack of self-confidence manifested as imposter syndrome, and conflicting access requirements. The report's recommendations. As is inevitable in any piece of research, conversations and responses to surveys give rise to further questions. It is important to acknowledge that, whilst these extension questions are vitally significant to the ongoing dialogue needed for the sector, the recommendations made in this report can only partially address them. Consequently, the primary recommendation is a call to action for every part of the creative and cultural sector to engage with the issue of bringing disabled people more effectively into governance processes. Action will be required from funders, sector support organisations, the wider cultural sector, and disabled people to address the barriers and embrace the benefits identified through this research. In furthering the debate around how best to engage deaf, disabled, and neurodivergent people in governance, we will be able to engage with some of these extension questions. What structures would allow access to work for disabled board members? How do we increase the number of known disability champions? How can we unlock the learning held in the disability-specific sector and use it to benefit the broader arts and cultural sector? How do our organisations benefit from the Purple Pound? How can we support individual disabled people to take up leadership roles? And how do they maintain autonomy when joining a board? This report calls for a high-level campaign to galvanise a sector-wide response to the inclusion and relevance agenda regarding the disability leadership and governance. This is an essential part of a more comprehensive roadmap for change articulated by Arts Council England's Let's Create strategy. A coordinated approach is needed between the UK Arts Councils, trusts and foundations, specialist companies, and the wider cultural and higher education sectors. UK Arts Councils and Ipsos should develop a shared theory of change to bring about sectoral change in leadership and governance, work with the Charity Commission to overcome systemic barriers, commission specialist arts sectors to develop training and development opportunities to unlock skills, knowledge, and experience. For instance, the Access All Areas 10 Steps to Inclusive Leadership initiative. Collect data based on access provided through the proposed Arts Access Scheme. Kickstart the process with a 2-year board bank or matching service. Specialist deaf, disabled, and neurodivergent-led organisations should develop seminars, webinars, and case studies exploring cultural governance from a disability perspective. Create a set of access resources for the wider cultural sector. Encourage and support disabled people to take on board positions in the broader cultural sector as part of career progression. The wider cultural sector should Develop a buddying scheme to support organisations to increase engagement, including training, development and resources. Reformat and rewire board meetings to provide clear, concise and coherent procedures and information. Commission series of case studies to show what can be done. Individual deaf, disabled and neurodivergent people should access support, including coaching, mentoring, buddying and intelligent networking, using Develop Your Creative Practices project funds to develop board influencing skills. The higher education sector and partners should research ableism within the arts and cultural sector and measure impact of change programme through longitudinal research. Further detail on all of these recommendations, the research underpinning them and initial feedback from the sector can be found in the full written report available on the Clore Leadership website. The link for this is in the video description below. Thank you for watching and listening. Please do be in touch with us on cga@cloreleadership.org if you would like to contribute to the next steps of this work at all.